you guys know that, you know, if you do the work, you work hard enough, dreams come true. You know that, we all know that. But hopefully what you get from tonight is the understanding that those times when you get up early and you work hard, those times when you stay up late and you work hard, those times when you don't feel like working, you're too tired, you don't want to push yourself, but you do it anyway. That is actually the dream. That's the dream. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And if you guys can understand that, then what you'll see happen is that you won't accomplish your dreams. Your dreams won't come true. Something greater will.
I play to figure things out. I play to learn something, right? Because I think if you play with a fear of failure, or you play with a will to win, or that supersedes a fear of failure, I think it's a weakness either way, right? Because if you play with the fear of failing, you'll have the pressure on yourself to play, you know, to capitulate to that fear. If you play with the sense of I want to win, then you have the fear of what happens if you don't. But if you find common ground in the middle, in the center, then it doesn't matter. You're unfazed by either, right? That enables you to really just stay in the moment, stay connected to it, and not feel anything other than what's in front of you. So, you know, I try to just be dead center. So if you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that, right? So to me, that's why failure is non-existent. Because, you know, if I fail today, okay, I'm gonna learn something from that failure, and I'm gonna try again on Tuesday.
What I've learned is to always keep going. Always. You know, there's been times, particularly early in my career, where it just feels like this is the end. But what I've come to find out is that, you know, no matter what happens, the storm eventually ends. And when the storm does end, you want to make sure that you're ready. And so I've really learned to put one foot in front of the other, good, bad, or indifferent, because eventually that storm passes.
I think the best way to prove your value is to work, is to learn, is to absorb, to be a sponge. But you always want to outwork your potential. You know, as hard as you believe you can work harder than that. And that's what I tried to do when I first came in the league. But, you know, basketball is such a direct competition sport that me coming in at 17, I hated when, like, my teammates would say, you know, I get hit with an elbow, right? Shaq would hit me with an elbow in practice. Like, you know, Nick Van Exel would come up and say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, motherfucker, what?
Imagine you wake up at 3, you train at 4, you go 4 to 6, come home, breakfast, relax, blah, blah, blah. Now you're back at it again, 9 to 11, right? You relax, and now all of a sudden you're back at it again, 2 to 4, and now you're back at it again, you know, 7 to 9. Look how much more training I have done by simply starting at 4, right? And so now you do that, and as the years go on, the separation that you have with your competitors and your peers just grows larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. And by year 5 or 6, doesn't matter what kind of work they do in the summer, they're never going to catch up because they're 5 years behind. Right? So it makes sense to get up and start your day early because you can get more work in.
We're not on this stage just because of talent or ability. We're up here because of 4 a.m. We're up here because of 2-a-days or 5-a-days. We're up here because we had a dream and let nothing stand in our way. If anything tried to bring us down, we used it to make us strong. We were never satisfied, never finished, will never be retired. My high school English teacher, Mr. Fisk, I actually paid attention one time in class, and he said, he had this beautiful quote, and it read, "Rest at the end, not in the middle." And I took that to heart. I believe there's time for resting at the end, but for me, that time is not now, but I'm far from done. My next dream is to be honored one day for inspiring the next generation of athletes to have a dream, sacrifice for it, and never ever rest in the middle.
I switched my mode into something else, right? For me, it's the equivalent of Maximus Decimus Meridius in Gladiator picking up the dirt, smelling the dirt. It's go time. So that was my mental switch. It was like an actor getting ready for a film. You gotta put yourself in that cage. When you're in that cage, you are that character. And then when you leave there, it's something completely different. But when I'm in that cage, bro, don't fucking touch me. Don't talk to me. Just leave me alone.
Once you retire, you don't have that source of income that's coming in, right? So even if you save over a 15-year career, if your spending habits remain the same, eventually that well's gonna run dry. right? So unfortunately for us athletes, the retirement age is 32, 34 if you're lucky, 37 like myself. What comes next, right? So the question needs to be, what comes next? What can I do? What is my passion? Not where I can create the most value or generate the most revenue, but what is my next passion? When you find that next passion, everything else will make sense. But that's the hardest part for us.
If you look at everyone on Instagram, you might think, man, there are all these happy, beautiful people, and I'm not that good looking and I'm not happy. So I must suck, you know, and that's gonna make people sad. So when in fact, those people you think are super happy, actually not that happy. Some of them are really depressed, they're very sad. Some of the happiest seeming people, actually some of the saddest people in reality. And nobody looks good all the time, doesn't matter who you are. Try to be useful. Do things that are useful to your fellow human beings, to the world. It's very hard to be useful. Very hard. Are you contributing more than you consume? Try to have a positive net contribution to society. If you can live a useful life, that is a good life. A life worth having lived. I would encourage people to use the mental tools of physics and apply them broadly in life. They are the best tools. But I encourage people to read a lot of books. Basically, try to ingest as much information as you can, and try to also just develop a good general knowledge. So you at least have like a rough lay of the land of the knowledge landscape. Try to learn a little bit about a lot of things. Because you might not know what you're really interested in. How would you know what you're really interested in if you at least aren't doing it? Talk to people from different walks of life and different industries and professions and skills and occupations. Just try to learn as much as possible. A future that is inspiring and appealing. I mean, I just think that there have to be reasons that you get up in the morning and you want to live. Why do you want to live? What's the point? What inspires you? What do you love about the future? And if we're not out there, if the future does not include being out there among the stars and being a multi-planet species, I find that it's incredibly depressing if that's not the future that we're going to have. One of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You want something to be true even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, it's certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, and say, really, I really do want to know, and then they'll tell you. I do think that, in terms of creating a company, what Edison said, which was it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, is true. So a lot of it in creating a company is execution. You start off with an idea, and that idea is mostly wrong. And then you adapt that idea and keep refining it, and you listen to criticism. Some criticism you discard, try to discard the wrong criticism, try to listen to the correct criticism, and then engage in sort of a recursive self-improvement and constantly refining it and making it better. And you have to work super hard, and that's very important. And then just keep iterating on a loop which says, am I doing something useful for other people? Because that's what a company is supposed to do. Certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to, a natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit, and just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week. all those things improve the odds of success. If other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that you will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve. There's a friend of mine who's got a good saying, which is that starting a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Okay, that's generally what happens, because when you first start a company, there's lots of optimism and things are great, and then so happiness at first is high. Then you encounter all sorts of issues, and happiness will steadily decline, and then you'll go through a whole world of hurt, and then eventually if you succeed, and in most cases you will not succeed, and Tesla almost didn't succeed, came very close to failure. Then if you succeed, then after a long time you will finally get back to happiness.
I say, kid, your chances of being a great fighter or good enough to make a good living is about 100,000 to 1. And if you spend the most of your life trying to be a fighter and you get hurt or you don't make it, your whole life is ruined. It's too late to get education. It's too late to look for a trade or something to fall back on. I say, no, take your mind while you're quick for developing, go to school, learn to read, learn to write, be a mechanic, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Go now, learn, get your mind conditioned, spend one day. Same with basketball, same with football, same with baseball. You can't be like Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier.
Personality of a person, the ways of a person, the thoughts, the deeds, the actions, it's all based around his heart. For what is a man? A man is his heart. A lying, cheating heart means a lying, cheating man. A loving, merciful heart means a loving, merciful man. A living heart means a living man. A dead heart means a dead man. Regardless to man's title, regardless to man's wealth, rank, or position, if the heart is not great, then he cannot be great. But if the heart is great, that man remains great under all circumstances, rich or poor, large or small. So it is the heart that makes one large or small.
Why do we go to the moon? Because it's there. Why are we trying to go to Mars? Because it's there. Columbus wouldn't have discovered America if he didn't take a risk. So he who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life. Well, let me tell you why they're frightened. Some people can see farther than others. Some people are impressed with limitations. We all live in our own world of limitations. Some people can see farther than others. So therefore, when people judge what I'm doing with their logic, it can't be done. Their reasoning says it can or shouldn't be done. Their knowledge of history says it can't be done. So their reasoning, their knowledge, and their logic clashes with my superior belief. Therefore, the result is they don't believe.
My name is David Goggins. I created Goggins. Goggins is the guy that can take anything you put in front of him. You want to break my legs? So be it. I have a way of going to a place like I did in that race, where all the pain and suffering that they put on top of me in Hell Week, I will reverse that pain and suffering, and I will take your soul. So every instructor that put me through BUD/S, my job, what drove me, was I wanted you to go home that night after you beat the living out of me, and I smiled in your face. I wanted you to feel worse than I did, and you were going home to a nice warm bed with your wife or your kids and a nice meal, and I was still out there in the grip, suffering for another 100 hours. I wanted you to think about me knowing that I'm comfortable being very uncomfortable. And I want you to think about when you went through Hell Week, how uncomfortable you were and how bad you wanted to quit, knowing I'm not thinking that way. So the dark side is something that I've designed. It's an evil place I can go that very few things can hurt. I use the hurt you're trying to put on me, I flip it upside down and use it. You trying to use it for kryptonite? No, it's power pillars for me. I'm using it for strength. I just flip negative into positive, that's all it is. I was just an insecure, scared kid. And the only way I could find myself was through putting myself through the worst thing possible. My biggest advice to give everybody in the world is, like I say, we live in an external world. Everything is you got to see it, touch it, it's external. If you can, for the rest of your life, live inside of yourself, stop listening to everything that makes no sense. All these insecure people putting their insecurities on you, you gotta flush it out. You gotta just be whoever the hell God or whatever the hell you believe in. If you believe in nothing but yourself, I don't care what it is. You gotta take everything and throw it away. You have to believe in one thing, and that is yourself. And I'm not saying don't believe in God or what you believe in, but right now, for you to find greatness in yourself, you're not gonna find it by looking in a book or by even hearing me. I may give you the spark, but you've got to go inside yourself to find it. And that means you gotta be quiet. Go in a room, stop talking, search your soul, search your mind, search your abilities, and you'll find it. But if you're not looking for it, you won't find it. So you gotta go start your journey. And the journey starts with you finding, why the hell am I here on this planet Earth? Why am I here? And if you don't know that, you will live the rest of your life searching, always asking the question, why? Whenever I'm weak at something, or whenever I'm scared of something, I master it. I was a weak-minded person, so I mastered my mind. And in mastering my mind, I mastered the human mind. And I realized why I no longer judge people, why I no longer put people on a pedestal, because we all have demons. Some people hide them better than other people. So I know we all have them. By me knowing that, I know that most alpha males are very fragile. Very fragile. They never want to see another person harder than them. So if I can hurt your ego, I got you. So I started using all these different tools and tactics to get in instructors' heads. And taking souls, that's where it happened, man. Mental toughness is not a class. We have this class, self-talk, visualization, arousal control. It's all great. It has to be a lifestyle. You work on mental callousing on a daily basis. Because even though your brain, your mind, your brain isn't a muscle so much, you will lose it. You will lose the ability to suffer in the worst of times if you come out of it for too long. If you can lift 315 pounds and you stop going to the gym for a month, I guarantee you won't be able to pick the same weight up again. If I went and said, I'm good, I gained all this knowledge. If I stop today, the knowledge is gone. I have to go back deep to retrieve it. I don't want to go back deep to retrieve it. I want to be able to call on it now. That's why I do these things. I know what not doing them will get me. I have a self-talk, it's called my cookie jar. And it's a constant reminder of every day of my life, I believe in quiet. There's no growth outside of quiet. The world's too noisy. Your mind needs quiet. For you to find who you are. People ask, what's my purpose? Why am I here? You're not gonna find it nowadays unless you lock yourself in a quiet room in your mind and find it. It's too noisy. For me, I could be in a busy street in New York City, horns honking, and I'm walking around with like nothing. It's me and myself in a quiet spot. And when you are constantly reflecting on who you are, where you've been, the journey you've gone through, the journey you can continue going through, the feeling's always there. You don't allow the world to pull you so fast that you forget. It's not about staying in that moment. It's about you want to get to the point where that feeling follows you like breathing, because it's part of your life, part of your DNA. But it's made, like these calluses on my hands right now, they're made. They are now on my brain. This is now a part of me. It's a daily process, a part of me. We forget how badass we are in hard times. When times get hard, as I remind myself, I'm a bad motherfucker. Everything I went through in my life, every bad fucking thing I went through in my life, the 2 heart surgeries, all the name calling, everything I went through. If you learn how to flip that motherfucker on top of his head and say, hang on, there's so much power in this fucking thing. And if you look at life as it is a trial ground, a testing ground for where you need to belong, where you need to go. Suffering is a fact of life. And if you look at suffering the right way, it's a great tool to callous your mind. If you look at it as suffering, woe with me, this is bullshit, God, kicking rocks. If you look at it like, okay, motherfucker, you're testing me now. I get it. Whenever I'm being like depressed, I go through depressed moments, I go, oh, hang on, I'm getting tested. So you have to be aware of all the signals and signs that are being given to you from the world. One of them is if you feel bad, you're being tested.
Let me just speak from the heart, speak from my gut, and really not have anything prepared, but just tell you what's worked for me. And maybe some of the stuff that's worked for me might work for you now, currently, presently, as you guys have your goals and ambitions, NBA championship, MVPs in this room, things like that. But then further on down the line, as you guys continue to live your life. The first thing I would just want to say is this idea and this notion that you can be anything you want, and you can accomplish anything you want, right? We hear that. You've heard that from the time you were little boys. You hear that now. You're already incredibly accomplished. You can win an NBA championship, MVP of the league. You could become president. You could become governor. You could do Charles, and you could do Shaq. You could do that. You could do whatever you want to do. You guys know that. The thing that has worked for me is to remember the hard times. A lot of you guys know I grew up here in Hawaii with my family, where we struggled, man, like a lot of you guys out there, struggled to pay the rent, hustled, doing everything we could to get by. You know you're getting your ass kicked when your rent is due by the week. We had a weekly rent. We couldn't even afford that. We eventually got kicked off the island. We got evicted. But what I want to tell you guys is, if you're going through some hard times, you got to hold on to that fundamental quality of faith and hard work, because on the other side of those hard times is something better, is a better life. You know, this life here, this was never my dream. My dream was, I just didn't want to be evicted anymore. So hold on to faith, keep working hard. Aloha. When I was 22 years old, I came to this city for the first time. I was playing in the Canadian Football League, playing my first pro football game. I was playing for the Calgary Stampeders. We were playing the BC Lions. I was so excited. 2 days later, I got cut. The dream shattered. Sent home with $7 in my pocket. I was like, wait, no, I gotta play in the NFL eventually. Those are my big goals. That's my dream. You realize that playing in the NFL was the best thing that never happened, because it got me here. So my point is, look, you're gonna get your ass kicked. We're gonna get the shit kicked out of us. You gotta get up. You gotta have faith that the one thing you wanted to happen oftentimes is the best thing that never happened. So have faith and just keep that in mind and keep plugging away. It's just a bar. Cold steel in an empty gym. No. It's much more than that. I don't just load these bars with metal plates. I put everything on them. My anxieties, my fears, my hopes, my dreams, my responsibilities as a provider, a father, a husband, a businessman, and some say even a leader. Whatever I'm dealing with out there, that's what I'm working through in here. And in the gym, as in life, raising the bar isn't always about putting on a big show. It's the small, quiet promises you make to yourself. The ones you could break and no one would know. But you don't. You show up every day and meet this gym on its terms, with humility, gratitude, and respect. Through struggle, through pain, through sweat, through the little voice deep in your gut that says you could quit at any second, but you don't. You raise and raise and raise again. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. When we were 14 years old, we lived in Hawaii, and we lived in a small efficiency apartment. And my mom and I came home, and I'll never forget, the rent was $180 a week. And there was an eviction notice on the door. My mom started crying, and I never forgot in that moment. It was a seminal moment for me, because I felt like I never want to be in this position again. But I feel this way, like oh, you know, we're a month away from being evicted. I got to go to work. Like, I still have that in my head.
You still have that.
I still have that in my head, you know, but it keeps you grounded, by the way. My back is up against this motherfucker every day. It's against this fucking wall. And then when my back is against this motherfucker, then there's nowhere to go but that way. And I don't give a who is in front of me. They're not going to stop me. I found that with depression, one of the most important things you could realize is that you're not alone. You're not the first to go through it. You're not going to be the last to go through it. And oftentimes it happens. You feel like you're alone, and you feel like it's only you, and you're in your bubble. And I wish I had someone at that time who could just pull me aside and, hey, it's going to be okay. It'll be okay. So I wish I knew that. Just got to remember. Hold on to that fundamental quality of faith. Have faith. And on the other side of your pain is something good.
When I was young, I didn't really know what I was going to do when I got older. I read a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, which said that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's really true. If you go back, I think it actually goes beyond that, because there are many things that we take for granted today that weren't even imagined in times past. They weren't even in the realm of magic.
One of the issues with social media, that's been pointed out by many people, is that I think maybe particularly Instagram, people look like they have a much better life than they really do.
Right.
So
by design.
Yeah, people are posting pictures of when they're really happy. They're modifying those pictures to be better looking. Even if they're not modifying the pictures, they're at least selecting the pictures for the best lighting, the best angle. So people basically seem they're way better looking than they basically really are.
Right.
And they're way happier seeming than they really are. So if you look at everyone on Instagram, you might think, man, there are all these happy, beautiful people, and I'm not that good looking, and I'm not happy, so I must suck, you know, and that's gonna make people sad. So when in fact, those people you think are super happy, actually not that happy. Some of them are really depressed, they're very sad. Some of the happiest seeming people, actually some of the saddest people in reality.
And then I think that the final thing I would encourage you to do is, now is the time to take risk. But as you get older, your obligations increase. So and once you have a family, you start taking risk not just for yourself, but for your family as well. It gets much harder to do things that might not work out. So now is the time to do that. Before you have those obligations. So I would encourage you to take risks now, do something bold. I always had sort of a slight existential crisis, because I was trying to figure out what does it all mean? Like, what's the purpose of things? And I came to the conclusion that if we can advance the knowledge of the world, if we can do things that expand the scope and scale of consciousness, then we're better able to ask the right questions and become more enlightened, and that's really the only way forward. I think also people tend to overweight risk on a personal level. Let's say you're young and you're just coming out of college or coming out of high school or whatever. What do you risk? You know, you're not going to stop. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer, so the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, like every waking hour. That's the thing I would say particularly if you're starting a company. The difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that can actually have merit. And that is a really difficult thing to tell you. Can you tell the difference between those two things? Very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to, a natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? And that is a really difficult thing to tell you. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week. If you assume things are true by convention, which is actually what most people do, then it's difficult to gain insight into how things can be bettered. You want to make sure that the underlying premises are valid and applicable, and then in reaching a conclusion, that the conclusion you're reaching is necessarily the underlying premises and the interconnection between those premises. Well, I mean, Tesla really faced a severe threat of death due to the Model 3 production ramp. Essentially, the company was bleeding money like crazy, and just if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die. And it was extremely difficult to solve them.
How close to death did you come?
We within single-digit weeks.
22 hours a day? I think. How many?
I was working, so 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory. I worked in the paint shop, general assembly, body shop. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. And people should not work this hard. They should not do this. This is too very painful.